We've talked about the thought pattern of dichotomizing, and I want to point out another way of understanding how we think about different groups of people, and that characteristics associated with those groups and the assumptions that we make about them. Another big theme that is carried throughout the semester and is part of the Newman text is the difference between the essentialist point of view and the constructionist. The essentialist believes that categories are finite and that they are real and that they can be discovered through empirical observation. Essentialism assumes that they are distinct, mutually exclusive categories. As applied to people, that you can categorize people by their race and that you merely have to observe the characteristics to know what race that person is, and that a person's race is part of their characteristic. It's innate and definable. And so the essentialist, if compared to a baseball umpire calling out strikes, balls, fouls, that umpire would say, "I calls them as I sees them." The constructionist takes a different view. Their central point is understanding that society creates labels and that there's power in the label in creating a definition. The constructionist believes that things do not exist until they are named as such, and that things are because we say they are. A constructionist understands that the social process which controls how we construct categories is just as important as the thing itself. This way of understanding differences follows the school of social constructive reality. Another key concept to understanding differences and social construction is to understand the power of the label and who has the authority to create or define the label. One might tend to think, with the power that some labels have, that a group would have some authority, or in other words, the naming rights, to the group label that defines them. The very word may have certain connotations, positive or negative. Think in terms of who creates and controls the application of a label. Native Americans were referred to for many years as Indians. Of course, not a label that this group chose, but the label that was applied by the conquering Europeans to describe the peoples they had encountered, thinking that they had sailed to India by establishing a new route to Asia. So it is very often the dominant group that's creating a label for the minority group. Another good example are the two-spirited indigenous peoples of North America. The two-spirited refers to those individuals that embody both genders in Native American culture. They are honored for their special abilities and spiritual nature, and not to have at least one member in a group is considered a loss to the group or the tribe. However, when initially encountered, they were labeled as Bardache. This label derived from French, and it was French for a male homosexual. So the name that was applied and used for over a century had very negative connotations from its origins. In the past 20 years, there has been a movement by those that belong to this group to create a new label, the two-spirited, which has a much more positive connotation to it. But the lesson here is of the powerful. Those that are almost always not members of the minority group have inherent social power in creating labels, and it can often take a strong social movement and a powerful struggle to reclaim the label.